Hey guys, this is Melissa Bachman. Are you ready to stop spooking deer before it's even time to hunt them? Then you need the new Flex S Dark cellular trail camera from SpyPoint. With a no-glow flash option, long-lasting solar power, and a ton of settings that can be changed anytime through the SpyPoint app, there are no more excuses for letting your deer get wise before the season even starts. So check it out for yourself and see why the SpyPoint Flex S Dark is the unstoppable and undetectable scouting tool you need for your next hunt.
Bow hunting all comes down to a moment. And in the moment, you want equipment on your bow that will get the job done. Trophy Ridge products are the tools bow hunters trust. React technology sights, rests, stabilizers, and quivers to help a bow hunter be successful in the field. And those tools are from Trophy Ridge.
And
Yeah.
I think by this point it's probably 10:30, and I start trying to cut this thing up. I've never gutted an animal before, and I'd watched a ton of videos. I thought, I'm totally prepped. I know what I'm gonna do. And I started cutting, and I had no clue what to do. You know how it goes. I mean, it took me, I want to say it was 2 hours of me trying. I actually cut my hand in the process, but just elbow deep trying to pull everything out of this chest cavity.
Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Hunting Stories podcast. I'm your host, Michael, and we have another good story for you today. Actually, several stories. Today we hear from Jayke Tronson. Jayke is a listener who found our little survey, filled it out, and jumped on and was brave enough to share his stories with myself and, of course, with all of you. So, Jayke, thank you very much for reaching out. I really do appreciate it. For you guys, the listeners, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll get this thing started pretty quick, but please do give us a like, give us a follow, whatever you're listening to. I really do appreciate it. If you have any feedback, let us know in regards to our storytelling episodes as well as our sort of conservation news episodes. Love to hear from you guys. Let me know how we're doing. But that's it, guys. Let's go ahead and kick this thing off and let Jayke tell you some of his stories. All right, Jayke, welcome to the Hunting Stories podcast, brother. How are you, man?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. I want to say thank you for coming on today, brother. I know that you reached out to me. I don't remember if you filled out the form or you messaged me on Instagram or whatever it might have been, but I know I had to schedule with you and then cancel and then reschedule, so thank you for being here, man.
Yeah.
I really do appreciate it.
That's what happens in elk season.
Yeah, right? But let's do this. Why don't you set the stage, brother? Why don't you tell the people who you are, where you're from, maybe a little bit of background about yourself and your hunting career.
Yeah, sure. I currently live in Idaho, elevator mechanic, and pretty much spend all my free time in the backwoods. Just got married, baby on the way, so lots of new stuff going on.
That's awesome, man. Some of my original hunting buddies were elevator mechanics. I don't know if you listened to the Stephen Bryant episode. He's an elevator mechanic. My brother-in-law is an elevator mechanic, so a lot of respect for what you guys do. I can't believe how many stories he's told me where guys like almost walk out of an elevator or into an empty elevator shaft. It's crazy stuff what you do, man.
It is pretty wild sometimes, for sure.
Yeah. Well, when's your baby due?
February, mid-February.
February. Dude, it's the first?
Yeah, it is.
Congratulations, man.
Pretty wild.
Congratulations. If you have it, I offer advice. I don't give it unless you ask for it. But if when it comes around, you have any questions, I'm here to help. I'm actually about to have my third in November. So,
well, congrats to you, man.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Yeah, but cool. Well, awesome, man. How long you been hunting?
I never really keep track of that. Probably coming on a decade.
Okay.
But more successfully the last probably 4 years. It's a long learning curve.
It is. Yeah, it is. So what got you started? I'm gonna guess a decade maybe has you starting, in your teens?
Yeah, so right around the time I could drive, 16-ish. I grew up in Washington, started hunting with my dad, and his dad hunted, the whole family. Nothing like serious. They were a little bit more the road hunting style, didn't love hiking as much. And but my dad definitely tried. He took me out a few times. It was more of like a gun hike, if you will, walk around the wood in circles and see what you could find. But It was more of like a once a year type trip. You know, you go out for a 4-day weekend if you can make it happen type situation.
Yeah.
So once I was able to drive and kind of take myself, I decided to pretty much just pursue deer for the meantime. I had this weird thought that elk was too big of an animal. It's like, why would I need that? I'm just one person, you know?
Yeah. But now you got a family, so now open up the doors, bud. Open up the doors for the elk.
Yeah. But that had been pretty unsuccessful for, you know, a number of years. And I had just seen some videos on calling bucks in, and somebody recommended the Deer Talk book to me. So, you know, basically just explains, you know, deer like these sounds, etc. And so I got myself a buck call, and I was all stoked to take it out for the year. And I had just met somebody who he kind of talked me into the elk stuff. He was like, "Hey, if I know what you're not thinking that's like for somebody by themselves, but just check out these born and raised guys. You know, they're pretty cool. It's wild what they're doing out in the woods." So I checked it out, and of course, you know, right away, just like, this is insane, calling in elk to 10 yards or whatever. So I got, you know, I didn't get a bugle or anything right away, but I was pretty amped up just to get out and hunt deer by themselves. And so I went out that October and just rifle, but it was later in the month, so I was hoping I'd be able to call in a buck with just some grunting.
Yeah.
And I'd never done it before, so I go out, and probably like the second day of the weekend, it's real cold over there, East Washington. Kind of still in the thick country though, not like the sagey stuff. But I just sat out against a tree on this long hillside where I could see, you know, 360, and I just started grunting and hoped something would come in. And sure enough, I call in this little buck, and I'm like on top of the world. This is like the first time I've seen a buck when I had a gun in my hands. And I'm trying to figure out, this area is a 3-point or better, you know, so you can't shoot anything under 3 points on one side at least. And I'm looking through my binoculars, and I got the world's worst binocular from Walmart. I cannot tell this thing's a 3-point. It looks like it's just a forky, but I'm not sure. So unfortunately, I had to let it pass. You know, I just wasn't going to get myself into trouble.
Yeah.
And it's getting late. The evening's rolling in. The sun's setting, and it's getting really cold out. And so I had just, basically where I was sitting was up on top of a bluff, and there's a cliff down below me. And I had to take a leak, so I went to take a leak off the cliff, you know. And I just happened to think, you know, yeah, right. I thought, you know, I don't have a bugle, but I got this buck call. Like, let me just see what happens if I try and make a high-pitched sound out of this buck call. And it's just like a, you know, a closed reed call. And I just blow as hard as I can this thing, and like instantly I get a bugle that's maybe 100 yards down off the cliff. And I was like, what in the world? Are you kidding me? There's a giant, I mean, in my mind, there's giant elk down here, you know?
Yeah.
And so I tried it again, and immediately hits off. And then I hear cows calling, and they're coming up the cliff to me. And I can't hunt them, but this is still an insane, like, obviously I'm going to try and get them as close as possible.
Yeah.
And sure enough, they come up on the bluff, and they're in the woods, I mean, maybe 50 yards away. There's a meadow between us, but I'm just watching this giant bull like rip up a tree from, you know, on the far side of the meadow.
Amazing. And what month was it? You're rifle hunting, so it was a little later, huh?
Yeah, it was late October. So
wow, that's amazing.
I was real surprised. Yeah, it was really odd, but you know, come to find out in the next couple of years, that area was a little bit more ruddy towards October than September.
Huh. That's interesting. I actually have hunted Washington as well. It's where where I started hunting, kind of central Washington. And people definitely, I've seen people call in bulls like mid-October and kill them. So yeah, I believe it. I believe it for sure.
I definitely had wished I had a bow in my hand for sure, you know, and a tag. But that just started a whole new life for me. You know, the next year I bought a bow. I had just moved to Idaho, but I still had tags and residency in Washington. So
Okay.
that's what I hunted was Washington for that year. And I got a bow and I practiced as much as I could, obviously.
So why pivot to bow? Just because of the elk calling? You're like, that's what I
Correct.
want to experience? Okay. That's cool.
I didn't have a lot of success trying to hunt with a rifle, just spot and stock type situation. And I thought the calling part was so cool. So I was still unsuccessful for a couple of years, but that next season I was able to call in like 3 giant bulls. And unfortunately, as you might know, Eastern Washington's like mostly spike only for elk.
Yep.
So you're pulling in these like 350 bulls, and you first time ish hunter, and you're like, I can't do anything. I'm just looking at this giant bull.
Yeah.
But some close calls and stuff to keep me addicted. Just keep the passion going.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a small step backwards because you reminded me of something. So there's 2 things actually that come to the same story. But one, I did just come out of the elk woods, didn't have success, so I'm not going to do like a big season recap because it's just a collection of like miscellaneous me and my buddies being idiots. But I want to share one of those us being idiots stories with you because you said you were pissing off of a cliff when you called in an elk.
Yeah.
And so I'm with my friend Robin, and the Wild Dispatch is his podcast. He's been on my podcast, I want to say at least 3 times, twice for himself and once for last year's Moose recap.
Okay.
And we're out there, and we're dropping down because we're hearing bugling. So we drop down this hillside, drop down to this big valley, and we hear bugling. And we just get there. The wind's not great, but we get there as we kind of think that they're kind of heading north up this draw. And so we hear cow calls, we hear calf calls. We're like, okay, cool. They're going on along this river. Let's go up on this kind of hillside up above them because we think we can actually move a little bit faster than where they were going. And like maybe we can get around them before they enter into some private that we can't get to. So we're cruising up there, and we're hearing the cow calls, and we're hearing the calf calls, and we're like, okay, this is great. We're pacing them. We're maybe even catching up with them. If we can keep doing this path, it'll be great. And then we hear this big bugle. And we're like, oh, shit. Did they cut off? If they cut east, they run into some privates. We're like, oh, shit. So we sit down, and we're like, okay, they must have bedded in those trees because it's like one patch of trees, and that's where we hear the bugle from. So we sit down, kind of find this spot where it's a sheer cliff, and it's like a rock couch above this cliff. It was like really, really convenient and very comfortable to sit, and you could glass forever. And so we're sitting there and being like, okay, they probably bedded down in those trees. This is perfect. And then we start glassing. We're glassing for, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes before we realize that what we had heard was other hunters probably calling to the same elk we were tailing. So we let off their tail thinking that they had turned off that way and bedded, but we were just looking at these other hunters. So we're sitting there on the cliff. Gosh. We're like, oh man, we just stopped tailing these elk because we thought they had turned off and bedded. So like that sucks. Now what do we do? So we're sitting there and we're like, well, we're kind of game planning, and we're watching these guys with binos, and then they've got their decoy, and they're all set up to basically hang out all day. But we're not hearing anything other than them, and we can see them calling, so we know it's them. And so my buddy's pissing off the cliff. Just like you, right? And he's sitting there, and I was like, what if they looked up here right now? He's like, well, they'd get quite a show. And I was like, why don't we give them a show? So we're like, all right. So what we do is he's got a digiscoping system. So we put his phone onto his binos, and then we put my phone so it's a camera facing us. And our brilliant plan, and this is just stupid, but we had a great time, it makes us laugh, is that we are going to call, because we've been silent up until that point, to get them like really excited. Like do a couple cow calls, like ooh, 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 and get them like paying attention. And then we're going to rip a bugle, and when they pull their binos out, my buddy was just going to drop trow and moon them.
Oh, nice.
So we recorded the whole thing. So we get the camera on us, we get the camera on them, and I'm eyeballing them, and I'm like, okay, go. And so meow, meow, meow. And all of a sudden we see them like perk up, like ooh, we hear something. Like and they're getting obviously excited. And the guy brings his mouth call in, and I'm like, he's about to call, and meow, and the guy's down in the draw call, and I'm like, okay, I'm like, rip your bugle. They're about to bring their binos out. So he just starts, and he just throws his pants down. ass out over my shoulder. I can't see it, but his ass is out, and I'm just watching these boys. And the one guy that's standing looks at his buddy. He's like, "Should I get my binos out?" And his buddy's just like, "No, don't get your binos out." And he's like, "Why not?" I can see him, and he's like, "Why not?" And he's like, "It's just someone's ass." Like what I'm assuming. And the guy just starts laughing at his buddy because he's just staring. We're probably, 280 yards or something away, just up this cliff that they'd never look up if they didn't hear a bugle. And all they got was two big white cheeks. So that's my story for you from my recent hunting season, which you reminded me of because you were pissing off a cliff. But yeah,
that's pretty good.
Not really a hunting story, but we laughed about it for days, which is, any positive morale you can get in the woods, the elk woods specifically, is good. So
definitely. And you gave those guys a story for life.
That's what we're thinking, right?
Yeah,
we're giving them something that they're going to definitely, like, we were sitting there, the elk were everywhere, and then all of a sudden there was an asshole just straight up the cliff. So,
yeah.
Sorry, I derailed this, but continue with kind of your progression. Because, okay, so you bought your bow in Idaho now.
Yeah.
Give me the rest.
So now I'm a resident of Idaho, and I'm planning for the next season, figuring out the regulations because it's completely different, and I'm basically going to the closest area I can after work every day. I'm in a new state, single, and all my time is just either working or in the woods. And so I'm setting up cameras everywhere, and I find this trail, like I'd hiked in probably 6 miles or something, and just horrible uphill the whole time. And then come to find out, I see a truck drive at the very top of the ridge. And I'm like, wait a minute, there's a road back here? Dude. And so I find the road.
I've done that same thing, man, where I'm like, I even knew there were roads, and I was like, but I don't want to walk on them, or I don't want to drive on them because I don't want to push the elk elsewhere. So I hiked in miles and miles and miles just for everyone else to drive on them. And I was like, God, that was dumb. Like, why didn't I think about that no one's going to give a shit except me? So, yeah, I've been there. That sucks.
Exactly, yeah. And so it just basically made it easier for me to check my cameras, really. But it was a pretty productive area. And while I was checking them, I found like there was a number of bears coming through. And at the time, it was spring. I was setting up for the fall. And in Idaho, you can bait for bears in the spring. Mm-hmm. So I thought, I've never done this before, but let's check it out, see what's baiting's all about. And I started bringing in bait to this site. It's like a 10-mile drive, so it's every like probably 3 times a week you're driving up there to put more bait on the spot. And I probably put like 2 months. It was the beginning of June by the time I finally was seeing bears consistently. Okay. And
let me ask, what did you use for bait? Did you like buy that jugs of stuff, or did you go to the local donut shops, or like how did you fill your barrel?
I spent way too much money. I didn't find any like bulk from anywhere. I just was buying stuff from the bakery, donuts, cookies, all that stuff. Mostly pastries, basically. Yeah. They worked though really well.
So you bought them you gave them like fresh ones, or were you like paying for like the outdated ones? Oh,
it worked out because, on my way up, I'd eat a couple, and, but it was definitely too much money put into it. But yeah, so I had put some time into the spot, and I was never seeing them while I was there. They were only coming in at night. Yeah. And at the time, I'm listening to Dan Staton, so he's all about staying until the last minute. You're hiking out in the dark, and I just couldn't get past the dark thing,
I get
scared
it, man.
of the dark.
I get it.
And
anyone who says at one point or another they weren't just scared of the dark, see some raccoon eyes off in the distance, whatever it is, they're lying. It's scary. I don't care who you are.
Exactly. Yeah, so I finally convinced myself. I had brought my brother and my nephew up there, and they're just camping at the top of the cliff. So I'm down by myself. And I'm like, you know what, they're close enough. I feel comfortable enough to stay out here in the dark. I can hike out, a half mile in the dark, because that's about how far I was from the road.
That's not bad.
And, yeah, not terrible. I mean, it's steep, but it's not horrible. And so I stay, and sure enough, the last 10 minutes, this black bear that I think is a slob, just a giant, comes walking across down the hill. It's like in this kind of a bowl that looks over a valley. and I'm too far away. There's basically too many trees between me and them, and it's dark enough that, it's hard to see through my scope. So I just start booking it towards the bear to try and get as close as I can to make a shot before. I've got like 3 minutes before time is up,
And this is archery or rifle?
This is rifle.
Okay.
I could have done either one, but I had my rifle and an old lever action 30-06, grandpa's gun.
That's awesome.
And I think when I ranged it afterwards, it was about 40 yards, but chip shot should be. And I lean up against a tree, put my hand on the tree, put the rifle in my hand, and then 2 shots just in about 10 seconds, 2 shots, and drop him in his spot. But this is my first big game animal. I've never killed anything else. So I'm like, I know I saw it drop, but number one, it's a bear, and it's dark by this point completely. It's 10 o'clock at night because that's 10:05 was the last shooting light.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm just going to go back up and get my brother to come with me because I'm not going to walk down there by myself.
Smart.
Yeah. Well, I go up there, and at the time, my nephew's maybe 3 or 4, somewhere in that range, and they were in the tent sleeping, so I woke them up with the gunshots, and I go up there and like, hey, can you come down there with me? He's like, well, we can't leave my nephew Silas there. He's sleeping and we don't want to wake him up, so how it is with kids. They get a little cranky. And so I'm like, you know what, you're right. I got to go back down there by myself still. So I go down there, but this time I brought like a speaker box from my truck, a Bluetooth speaker box.
Yeah.
And I'm just playing the loudest country music I can. I go down there and I'm making all the noise, yelling, screaming. And I think by this point it's probably 10:30, and I start trying to cut this thing up. I've never gutted an animal before, and I'd watched a ton of videos. I thought, I'm totally prepped. I know what I'm going to do. And I started cutting, and I had no clue what to do. You know how it goes.
Yeah.
I mean, it took me, I want to say it was 2 hours of me trying to actually cut my hand in the process, but just elbow deep trying to pull everything out of this chest cavity. And
2 hours is pretty good, in my opinion. I think that's a pretty good time for having never done it before.
Now, if I was to do that process, it's like 15 minutes. But at the time, it felt like an eternity in the dark. You're like every 5 seconds, you're looking up to make sure there's nothing around you with the flashlight, And I finally get all the guts out or whatever, and
hey, hunters. Have you ever had one of those stories, the ones that you didn't want to tell, the ones that end in failure? Yeah, I've been there. Actually, you know what? The culprit for me usually is bad optics, or worse, lack of using my optics at all. Picture this. I spot a trophy buck, or an antelope, or an elk, whatever it may be. My heart is racing, but the blurry view, or I just can't quite identify exactly what I'm looking at, it has me second guessing. Well, that's where Vortex Optics comes in. With crystal clear glass and rugged durability, Vortex gives you the confidence to take the shot. Don't let poor optics ruin your story. Make every moment count. Upgrade to Vortex and turn your hunting tales into triumphs. Visit vortexoptics.com today.
Join us at a Friends of NRA event where freedom, fun, and firearms come together like nowhere else. With more than 600 events held across the country, there's always one happening near you. From exciting games to exclusive auctions featuring one-of-a-kind firearms and gear you won't find anywhere else. Whether you're a lifelong hunter, a competitive shooter, or simply passionate about defending freedom, there is a seat for you. Visit friendsofnra.org to find an event near you and get ready for a night you won't forget.
I didn't think about the fact I could have just quartered it up, but at this point I'm so scared. I'm like, I'm just going to throw the whole thing on my backpack because I have the EXO pack, so I'm going to just open it up, try and basically sit the bear in my backpack and just strap it across. Well, it worked. I mean, I strapped it in, but I tried to get up, and I could not get up. I mean, it wasn't a big bear like I thought. It was a pretty small bear, but just, equal size to my body weight, and it just was impossible to roll over.
200-pound bear or something.
Yeah, and
that's funny, man.
one of my flashlights had died, so all I had was my headlamp at this point. And I'm getting, even though I've been there for a while, I'm getting more scared as it goes on, you know, just something about it being creepy out there. And eventually I must have just got an adrenaline surge, and I pushed as hard as I could, stood up. I almost fell over a few times, but, you know, I was able to start making headway up the mountain. And that half mile took me about the same, about 2 hours. I think I got back to the truck at 2 a.m.
You said it was steep, right? Steep getting back out of there.
It was horrible. I thought my spine was going to break with that backpack on. I don't know how that backpack made it, but it all worked out. And, you know, that's just a courage builder. So after that, I started being able to be out there in the dark a little more. But it was a crazy night for sure.
That's crazy, man. Are you in the so I'm assuming you shot a black bear. Are you in the part of Idaho that there are brown bears?
Negative.
Okay.
That was the only thing probably keeping me out there after dark, was the fact that I knew there was no brown bears.
Yeah. Oh man, that's awesome. That's awesome. Did you get to hear excuse me, did you get to hear the death bone? I've always heard that they have that. You might have just liquefied him with the 2 shots at 40 yards, but no?
Pretty much. No,
okay.
My first shot actually spined him, and then second shot, you know, a couple seconds later was straight through the lungs, and I didn't hear anything.
Okay.
Granted, you know, I took off and went up the mountain pretty quick after I shot him, so
yeah,
maybe he did it when I left, but it was just a little boar, and he might have been, I don't know, 160 pounds.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy.
That's
have
awesome,
heard that
man.
sound since. I've killed another bear, and it's quite a wild sound to hear when you're that close.
I bet.
Actually,
bear is like number one on my list right now for like going out. I've had bear tags. They've always been supplemental to an elk hunt. Like this is like, hey, if I run into one, let's go. More often than not, you're not going to see a bear. So I've never actually been bear hunting. I want to do it. I want to have the shit scared out of me. I want to have the sun go down and be exactly like you and be like, someone help me. I need help.
Yeah, right.
But man, that's a great story. Okay, keep going. I like the progression that we're going on. What's next?
I had something just from this year that kind of came up related to bears. Me and my wife drew extra deer tags, whitetail tags, over in like Salmon, Idaho. So we went up there just for the weekend, Labor Day weekend, tried to spot a couple whitetails just off the road, like antlerless, you know. So in theory, I thought it'd be pretty easy. For whatever reason, we could not find a doe to save our lives, at least not a whitetail.
Yeah.
And it's the last night we're going to stay out there, Saturday night, and we're driving up this, like, probably 10 miles back in the back country and on a real gnarly dirt road. And we come across this side-by-side, and 2 guys have a spotting scope across the canyon. So, you know, I stop probably a quarter mile back just in case they're, you know, working something. And he starts waving, like, trying to get me to come forward. So I start coming forward, and he's running to me. He's like, dude, do you have a rifle? I'm like, yeah, I got a rifle. Like, do you need it? And he's like, there's 3 black bears over here. There's a sow with a cub, and then a boar, what looks like a boar. And so I'm like, dude, I'll get my rifle out. You can use it. You found it. I'm not going to shoot it, because he offered it to me. And so we start getting set up, and another side-by-side with, like, it was actually 2 more side-by-sides with 2 families roll up. So we've got a whole show going.
Are they hunting, or are they just like ATVing? Okay,
everybody's
cool.
hunting, and nobody knows
whole
each
crowd.
other.
Yeah.
And so we're getting set up, and I have like a 6.5 PRC, so I was feeling pretty accurate with over 500 feet with it, or 500 yards. And this shot is just over 500 yards, like I think 540.
Okay.
And this guy's never shot my gun before, but starts getting set up, and he takes the first shot, and it looks good. It looked like it hit it just behind the elbow, you know, kind of where you do that classic heart shot on a deer.
Yeah.
And so that bear rolls and starts tumbling down the mountain. Well, he catches himself in a bush, and then he gets up and starts walking up the mountain. So we're like, shoot, we got to get another bullet in him. And basically, we had to run up the road to get a better shot angle because he went behind some trees. And I think it was end up being 4 shots into him before
No way.
he was dead. Yeah, it ended up being it would have been a Texas heart shot, but he was going uphill so hard that it was kind of through the line, if you would. And he was dead.
I was
instantly.
curious if more people actually use that term, the Texas heart shot. But that's funny.
Yeah.
All the way up in Idaho, you guys got the Texas heart shot. All right.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, that's a shot right up the pooper. So
Yeah. I was kind of glad that wasn't what actually happened. It would have made a mess. But we're celebrating, because we're a bunch of guys that didn't know each other. We're like introducing ourselves after the fact, and couple of cool guys from Coeur d'Alene. And cool. I'm like, hey, so are you gonna take the meat? Because in Idaho you can take the meat or leave it, but you have to take the hide and the skull. And he's like, no, I don't do anything with the meat. So I was like, well, I'll help you pack it out if you let me take the meat. And so sure enough, we go up there. I mean, it's after dark at this point, but we go drive around the canyon and hike down from the top of the ridge. And I think we cut him up in like 2 hours, and it was a late night, but well worth it. I didn't have to tag a bear, but I came out with, a full cooler of meat. Even
That's
though
amazing,
we didn't find
man.
any deer. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
I love the camaraderie in that story. Like, you often hear of like hunters being like, "Oh, I didn't see nothing," even though they know there's a herd over the next hill. It's cool that everyone was working together. Like, "Hey, you got a gun? Yeah, here, take my gun."
Yeah, that's what we were saying.
I kind of love that.
It's cool. Like a lot of times your interactions with other hunters isn't exactly, the most friendly. So it was cool
I'll tell you what,
to
man,
know some guys.
As you can imagine, every interaction I have with people in the woods is always friendly. Whether or not they're being honest about what they've seen is irrelevant. But like, I try my best to just be as kind and friendly as possible. And people, it's funny. My hunting buddies are like, "Why do you have to talk to every hunter that we run into?" And I don't know why, but I just like feel like I need to have a conversation with everybody. But that's cool. I love that, and I love that he was able to put the bear down. And I don't know if I'd just shoot someone else's gun over 500 yards, but good on you guys.
I know. I was very impressed. He was pretty good. Yeah. It was a whole process because, I'm sitting there having to do the dial dope sheet and everything because he doesn't know my dope sheet, obviously. But, yeah.
Does he, so he was maybe archery hunting something? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, he was archery hunting for elk, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
So they had no
bear tag
rifle.
is whatever method of take.
Right.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's
It
awesome.
worked out, yeah.
What do you think of bear meat? I've still yet to have it.
It does vary from bear to bear, like some people would tell you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the 3 bears I've killed, they've all been grass diet, like high mountain, mostly grass and berries when I open up their stomachs. So they've tasted pretty good. It's like an offshoot of beef kind of, and it's my favorite. I had a year where I killed an elk, a bear, and a deer and had a family barbecue. And the bear was the first thing gone, the elk, and then there was like a handful of deer left. So deer was the least favorite.
Interesting.
But yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I've always heard great things. Like I think it's Stephen Ranella says it. Like if you look at a lot of the like frontiersman literature, they would shoot deer and elk for their hides because it makes great clothes, but they would shoot bear to eat because it's just tasty. Yeah. Especially if they're eating berries and stuff like that. So that's cool.
Definitely. I try to preach it because there's a lot of people that don't take the meat in Idaho because you don't have to, and I love it. Everybody should try it for sure. That's interesting.
Yeah, Idaho is I got a buddy, Eric Boone. He's been on the podcast. I don't even know what episode. It's one of my probably first 50. He baits out there, and he's invited me out a couple times. So, what neck of the wood are you in Idaho? Maybe if I get out there, we can grab a beer.
Yeah, I'm just outside of Boise at the moment.
Okay,
so
cool.
I kind of hunt everywhere, but I'm local to Boise.
Cool, very cool. All right.
Yeah.
Well, what else you got, man? Let's keep them coming. This is fun.
Yeah, I got my favorite elk story. It's the one that's above me here, and
tilt the camera up a little bit. I can only see the skull. I can't see the horns.
Yeah,
that's good.
It's a 5-point. Yeah, nothing insane, but it's got some good mass.
He's real symmetrical. Other than maybe the brow, like one of the brow tines being a little bit shorter, he's super symmetrical. That's a beautiful bull.
Yeah, from the side he does look a little different. He's not quite symmetrical, but as the points go, yeah, definitely.
Nice. Okay, well, let's get into it. If your favorite story, I'm excited for this one because you've dropped some good ones so far.
Yeah, so it kind of starts on bear hunting. The spring I had killed this bear that's behind me, and it's a giant bear. He's like squared out at 6 foot, but he's super wide, so just a nice rug. And that season, I was baiting again, and I had like 9 bears on my baiting site, so I was all amped up about it. And my uncle had heard, so against my better judgment, I agreed to take him and his buddy out to my spot during elk season. And this is like late September. I think it was the 3rd week of September, and I had already hunted basically the whole month prior, and I was like wore out from hunting. I had tons of interactions. I was doing really well.
Yeah.
But just couldn't close the distance, you know. They winded me or whatever it ended up being. And I had this last pin I really wanted to try, but it was above it was kind of surrounded by a bunch of private land and hard to get to. And so the last morning of their bear hunt, we hadn't seen anything, and I was like, you guys can sit in this spot. I'm going to go take off and just do one last hunt for the month. So I take off before dark or before light, and I've got probably an hour drive down the mountain to get into this other area. And I hadn't ever scouted this spot before, but is one of those spots on the map where it looks like there's a bunch of roads that go out to this wilderness area, but they all kind of cut through private property. So you don't really know which ones actually connect out there or if they're blocked. And my theory was to get out there before light, you know. But by the time I had gone up probably 10 driveways and been blocked out by gates, I think it was 9 in the morning when I got to the top of the ridge, and it was totally light out, starting to warm up. And my first spot I could pull off, I actually had a group of does come across the road in front of me, and with archery, opens up about the same time as elk, you know. So I thought, well, dude, this thing's standing right here, and it actually looked like one of them was wounded. So I thought maybe I'm just gonna take this doe right now and just get the meat, you know. Yeah. But as I'm sitting there, I'm literally drawn on this deer, and I'm like, I'm here for an elk hunt. Why would I kill a deer and a doe no less, you know?
Did you have a doe tag, or in Idaho is it one of those like lesser species kind of situations where you can shoot a lesser species with a bigger tag?
So I had a regular deer tag, and that works for any of the seasons. There's more restrictions than that, but you know, it can work if you're using archery early and then rifle later in certain units.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so I could shoot a doe at the time or a buck as long as it was archery. And I decided to back down and just get back in the truck and go to this spot I knew I was going to bugle. And I'm sure glad I did. I got out. This is the first bugle of the morning, and it felt like I was failing already because it was light. So I just, do a nice location bugle, and didn't hear anything. So I'm walking back to the truck. I had walked out like 15 yards from my truck or something.
Okay.
And as I'm reaching for the handle, I hear a bugle behind me, and I'm like, no way, dude. This is perfect. Right where I put a pin. I'm so excited. And so I take the truck, run it off the road, somewhere where it's not in the way. And I just grabbed my bino harness, no backpack, thinking I'm just going to run and gun, like get this thing. I can't waste any time. This is my last hunt.
Dude, God, when I leave my backpack or my gun, I know I'm going to run into something. As soon as I'm ill-equipped to be in a situation, that's when it works out for me. But keep going.
Yeah. So I've still got a little bit of road I can jog on, and this is it was an area that was probably logged maybe 2 years ago. So there's new growth, but there's old logging trails where the tractor, and so I'm jogging up this, trying to get to a spot where I feel like they kind of were, and I was trying to play the wind. The wind was coming up the drainage, and so I was trying to get above them, basically. And it turns into this area is not like your classic South Idaho. It's like thick, like Washington thick, and I'm like just swimming through brush, and I hear some cows calling. So I've got a general area where I need to go. I'm going up. And I get into this area, I didn't realize it opens up into like basically patches of meadows and then trees in between them all, you know? So meadows and patches of trees basically. And I come up to where I feel pretty close, and I bugle back and forth maybe 3 or 4 times. And this bull like doesn't sound the best, but then I can hear other ones farther off.
Okay.
And I'm trying to be as sneaky as possible because I've at this point I've blown like 3 or 4 stalks, and
Yeah.
I'm just really cautious. So I'm going as slow as possible, and I start coming down the hill. The wind's perfect, so as I'm like, there's a meadow between me and the patch of trees where I know they're at, and I can hear at this point 3 bulls and at least 20 cows. It's like a rut fest, and I'm just cow calling now that I'm that close. And I hear something coming towards me that's bugling, but it's like a quiet bugle. It sounds immature, but I'm taking what I can get.
Yeah,
And
last day of the season for sure.
exactly. So I sit on my butt and I start scooting through this meadow with my bow on my chest, just scooting because it's tall enough grass that it's above my head. And I'm like basically crab crawling. And then all of a sudden I see something pop out of the bushes directly to my right. And it's 2 spike elk come like walking up. And I kid you not, like 6 feet away they stop. And the wind is just perfect that it's being away from me, or from them, I guess. And one of them bugles right in my face. Like,
no way.
It's not like crazy loud like an old bull, but I'm on top
Still.
of the world, goosebumps,
Just smelling that beautiful, disgusting smell that is elk. Oh, that's
exactly.
cool.
And, right at the end of his bugle, I think I must have like kind of shook a little bit and my bow moved. And he just whipped his head down and looked at me, and I'm like, oh, I'm done. They spotted me. And I just hold as still as I can, and he stares at me for like what feels like an eternity, probably and so he turns around finally, him and the other little bull, and they take off back in the woods because they're like, something's not right. And I back out a little bit and go back to the other tree line and try and make a circle down around the meadow. And I pop out, and I bugled right before I came out of the brush just to like try and see where everything was. And I come out of the brush, and the same 2 spike are right there. I'm like, what? What's going on? And they've seen me at this point, so I'm like, I'm committed. So they're looking at me, I just bugle as hard as I can. I'm like, I'm in it now.
Yeah.
And they turn slowly and start walking the other way, kind of quick, like not like they've been spooked, but they didn't like what they saw, obviously. And I'm at this point in like tall pine trees, so there's it's less thick, but there's tons of trees everywhere, and I can see cows moving kind of far off, and then I see like a raghorn, like a 3x4 or something. So I'm hiking down the mountain, and I realized I dropped my rangefinder because I had a rip in my bino harness. So I'm like I'm trying to make a move on this rag bull, and I gotta find my rangefinder on the ground behind me somewhere. And so I go back, and luckily I found it.
Running an outdoor business is a grind. One day you're glassing ridgelines or running dogs, the next you're tuning gear or working to keep the land wild. And somewhere in between, you're expected to fill calendars, move product, and keep your name alive. That's where the Ignite Marketing Group comes in. They work with outfitters, gear brands, and conservation groups to tell your story the way it deserves to be told, and to put it in front of the people who live for this lifestyle. Imagine a website that doesn't just sit there, but actually books hunts. Imagine campaigns that don't feel like ads, but like a buddy passing along a tip. Imagine your story reaching more hunters, anglers, and outdoor enthusiasts who get it and who want it. That's what Ignite does. No gimmicks, no flash, just real growth for people who belong in the outdoors. Don't just market, ignite it. Learn more at ignitemarketinggp.com/outdoors.
Netflix has a new, monstrous story to tell. In 1950s Wisconsin, Ed Gein lived quietly on a decaying farm, hiding a house of horrors so gruesome it would redefine the American nightmare. Driven by isolation, psychosis, and an all-consuming obsession with his mother, he committed crimes that would haunt Hollywood for decades. The third and most harrowing installment of Ryan Murphy and Ian Brennan's anthology series. Watch Monster, the Ed Gein story, October 3rd, only on Netflix.
And they hadn't taken off or anything, so I sneak back down to the spot I was at, and I've got this raghorn there's like a wall of brush between us, but he knows I'm there. He doesn't know what I am because I'm calling, and I tried to like kick the ground, make it look like I was raking, if I was a bull or something.
Yeah.
Just tried to look elky, and I'm drawing up because I got a range. It's maybe 35 yards. And I let the arrow go. Well, that wall of brush was just thick, and I hit a branch, and it zinged right over his back.
Oh.
Yeah. And at this point, they're like, something's not right. So they all just take off down the mountain. And it's got to be like 30 elk in total. And I bugle just trying to like maybe stop them, and they don't stop. But I just thought, I'm already dogging the herd. I don't think they smelled me at this point because the wind was such in my favor. And they had dropped off a cliff. So I, against my better judgment, went down the cliff and tried to chase them, And
Yeah.
it's turning into like ferns and stuff, like legitimately Washington, like rainforest type trees and swamp. I'm like up to my knees in, mud. And
How far are you from your backpack at this point?
at that point, I think I was maybe a mile, and it wasn't too bad yet. After I dropped off the cliff, it got real bad.
Yeah, okay, keep going.
Yeah, yeah, that's important to remember, the backpack. So I'd go through this swamp, and I get down into this area it's a perfect bowl, and it's just enough shaded by the peak of the mountain that the sun's not on it. And I still have good wind, but if you're facing downhill, the elk are over on the right, and I was thinking because of how the wind was going, I'm going to go to the left and try and just come straight across at them. And so I'm just as slow as possible, trying not to be seen, make my way around to the left, and that raghorn bull is up above me on the ridge, and I start thinking I'm going to make my way to that because it's the closest elk. But as I'm making my way, I hear what at first I thought was a wolf howling. It turned out to be like the oldest sounding bugle I've ever heard. I'm like, there's no way I can't chase that. It sounds like the most mature bull you could ever hear. It didn't even like have a high note. It was just like, it sounded like a howl legitimately.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I'm bugling back and forth with this older bull, and I start cutting across this bull, and I come up to basically, if you were looking at it from, the sky, it looks like an offset cross, like there's a T of open area, and the surrounding is all woods, if that makes sense. And I'm at the top of the T, and he's kind of adjacent at the bottom of the T. Okay. So if I step out, he'll be able to see me at this point because he's in the opening. So I'm just bugling, trying to get him to step into my zone so that he's not seeing my movement. And he's just not coming to where I need him. It would have been like a 30-yard shot. And I had ranged it a bunch of times to make sure. Well, I start seeing him kind of turn around and start walking off, and I had heard Dirk Durham talk about this thing called the Wee-Ipe Whiz-Bang. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Yeah,
but it's basically like you just scream at him as hard as you can and start running and crashing everything you can. Make it sound like you're about to rock his world,
Yeah.
And sure enough, he's walking the other way, and we have like a big pine tree between us. And I just run straight for that pine tree and rip a bugle and start raking this pine tree right between us with my hands in the bugle because that's all I have, And And he whips around and starts running back at me, and I'm looking to the right, and there's cows staring at me. They're like, what is this thing? Like totally confused. And he comes up. Well, I had ranged him at 30 yards. That's what I had in my head. And he's, I don't know, 10, 15 feet from me at this point. He came running back, and as soon as he looked around the tree, saw him, turn broadside. And I still had that 30 number in my head, so I lined my 30 pin up and just pulled the trigger as fast as I could because he was close. And he just drops immediately in his spot and starts kind of rolling because it was a slight downhill. Well, I had spined him, so I just took out his back legs. His front legs were still working, so he's trying to get away from me, And in that moment, you're just full adrenaline, so just shaking, out of control. And I tried to get another arrow out, knock it up. I pull back, and I don't even know. It just shot like 6 feet over top of him. I don't think I even looked to the peep sight.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm like, okay, this is not good because I had previously shot a couple arrows, so I'm down 2 arrows. I'm like starting to feel like I gotta get something in this, but I can't miss again. And so I calm down, just take a second, even though he's suffering, which was pretty hard in the moment. I take a breather, and then I line up on him and, double lung. He was dead after that in, 10, 15 seconds. But overall, probably 2 minutes, and just I start bawling, I'm like, I felt like I killed the biggest bull in the world, but at the same time, I felt like he'd suffered a lot, and it was pretty rough. I was completely by myself, so I'm like, I got nobody to tell anything to, you're just like, how do I express anything? And it was pretty crazy. I walk up to him, and he's just this thick mass 5-point, one side, he's like, you could start to see where the 6th is coming out, but not quite. If I'd given him another year, he would have been a really nice bull, but you know how it goes.
Dude,
you're just taking what you get.
Great.
Yeah.
That's a great story. Here's a question I have for you. It goes back to the very beginning. You said you took out your uncle and his friend. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you said, I took them out to my regular spot despite my better judgment. Give me some details there. Is it because of their character, or is it because of like you're just giving away a good spot, or what were you talking about there? Because I've been curious since you said that.
Yeah, so I mean, it definitely blew up my spot in the end. The next year I saw 0 bears there, but they were just out of shape and drinkers. They were road hunters. They didn't want to put in the hiking time, and it was fun to share camp with them. They're good dudes, just not quite hunters. Neither of them had been hunting before, so.
Oh, okay, cool. So they were there for the experience of just like camp and all that fun, which is great, and that's where I started hunting, and probably why I fell in love with it in the first place.
Yeah.
But I've evolved to like the no more drinking, let's push and do some miles. So okay, that makes total sense. I just wanted to ask that. But man, that's a great story for the whole thing. I love that you used Dirk's. What was it? The Weap Whiz Bang.
Yeah.
God, that's great.
It was pretty crazy. In total, I'm in the middle of a rut fest for like 3 or 4 hours. It was pretty wild.
Yeah.
And I've all my elk hunting's been by myself, so I'm like trying to figure out, how am I going to get out of here? I have no backpack, and my truck is probably 2 miles up through the thickest, nastiest country. And so I start like looking at the map, and I'm trying to figure out all those roadblocks I had ran into. Trying to get up there, it turned out was like a guiding service. They had owned a bunch of property out there, so they're the ones that put all those gates out.
Okay.
And there was a road right below me that was on public, but both sides of the boundary, like the public kind of came up onto the road, but the rest of it was private. So I was just trying to figure out how I could get my truck down to that road so I didn't have to hike up, I mean, it was like 3/4 of a mile downhill to the road, which, wouldn't be too bad minus the straight down factor. But it took me... I ended up not cutting up the elk because I thought, if I start cutting it up now, I don't have my backpack or any bags with me. I just had my knife with me, so I took off back up the mountain without anything, just hoping I could get to my truck, the way to that road, and then cut it up before dark. And it took me until dark to find a route up there because all those roads were blocked off one way or another.
Yeah.
But I got there. I almost wrecked my truck doing it. I had to cross, like they had one part of the road was sloughing out, and they put a log across the road for you to put a tire on. And, well, I didn't see that log, so I just was going 20 miles an hour, hit that thing full bore. I broke the log, and my back tire is sagging off this slough, and I'm pinning it, trying to get up the road.
Yeah.
And it was, I had a heart attack for sure. I had to pull over and stop for a minute to take a breath. Yeah. But I ended up packing that bowl out in 2 packs. So it was,
damn.
I weighed it later, and it was like 160 pounds was my heaviest pack. That was the one with like the hindquarters and the head. That was a poor choice for sure. I wouldn't
Both
recommend
hindquarters
that.
and the head. You didn't go front, back, and then for the,
Yeah, I was trying to get the majority out, so my second pack was just way lighter,
Yeah.
And I tell myself I'll never do that again. Yeah.
That's great, man. Well, that's an amazing story from like start to finish. So that was great. I know we're running a little low on time here. Do you have any more you wanted to share?
I think I got one more that's somewhat shorter for sure.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, it's actually my first elk. It was the year prior to that, but kind of the same area. It was actually my bear spot, and I found this area on the map that looked pretty good. It was maybe 2.5 miles deep, and it was all uphill again. I got to figure out how to hunt downhill sometime.
No such thing.
Right, exactly. I get into this area, and I've been bugling all day. It's been real hot, and it's the afternoon, and I had heard nothing. So I was pretty discouraged, but it was August 30th, and so, still real fresh. I wasn't wore out per se, and I put another mile in, and I come up to this spot where it's like a pretty good drainage. The other side's maybe 80 yards, but it's deep, and there's water at the bottom. Or at least, a wallow, not really a creek per se. I couldn't get water out of it, unfortunately, but I get up there, and I'm on the edge of the drainage, and I bugle down there thinking, something's got to answer me. This is a beautiful area, and I don't hear anything, so I walk down another 30 yards, and I bugle again, and I rake a tree, and all of a sudden I hear what sounded like a bunch of elk kind of busting, like taking off up the hill.
Okay.
Well, I'm thinking, whatever, they've taken off. But I'm just going to bugle again just to see, and then try raking again. And I hear the same sound again. It sounds like elk taking off. Well, I realize it's an elk down there that's raking another tree. So it's responding to the raking, not the bugling. And so I'm totally excited. I start making my way down there. The wind was coming up the drainage because it was the afternoon. And as I'm making my way down there, I'm looking, and I can't really see anything until I get to the bottom, and I see there's 2 elk. One's a little bit bigger and like a 5x5, and the one I'm looking at, I can't tell what it is. It just looked big because it was my first elk I saw with antlers with a bow in my hand. It just, it looked giant. And if I'm standing up the hill a little bit more, I've got a straight shot. We can see each other, and there's a giant set of bushes right below that. So I'm trying to be in the bushes and like just look through to see what the situation is.
Okay.
And I'm bugling because I'm at this point 30 yards away. I'm bugling, and I'm ripping up the ground with my foot, trying to make it look like I'm an elk. And this elk is just staring at me. I can see him. He's right behind a tree, but just peeking his head out. So I take off my backpack, and I actually lost my rangefinder again that time. And this is before. So after that elk, I definitely got a new bino harness, but I ended up losing my rangefinder. And I knew it had to be about 25 yards. It was close enough. You get a feel for it. So I walk out in front of this bush as slow as I can with my everything knocked up, and I've got one tree between us. And so I go to try and pull my bow. I just cannot pull my bow for the life of me. I don't know what's going on. It was all psychological. I just was like so wound up. I couldn't draw my bow. So I just let down. I stepped back behind the tree for a second, and he's still just looking at me. The wind must have been good. And so I drop behind the tree, step out, and all I've got's a frontal shot because he's straight on to me. And so I'm like, you know what? I've seen this work well on some videos. I'm just going to go for it. So I take the frontal shot, and immediately blood everywhere. He spins, takes off. I didn't really get a good look at him, but I knew blood was going everywhere. So I'm celebrating, you know, like screaming my head off by myself, but, you know, still. And I actually, weirdly enough, I have no signal out there, but in this one drainage, I had like 2 bars of signal. So I called my mom, and I was like celebrating with her. I'm like, you'll never guess what just happened. It's the first night I'm out here, and I killed an elk. And so I sit in that spot, and I think I gave it like 45 minutes, and I walk down and just look at the first spot, you know, where he was when I shot him, and it's like a massacre. There's blood everywhere. Yeah. And so I walk down a little bit further to see if I can catch the trail, and it's like probably chest high buckbrush and then like fallen logs everywhere. So you're like jumping over logs. It's pretty smooth. And then all of a sudden I hear something moving ahead of me, and I see an elk going up the ridge where I came from, but real slow. So I'm like, I don't know if that was the other elk or if that's him and he's just moving real slow because he's hurting bad. And so I go that direction, you know. I end up, that's where the blood was, so I followed, and it started getting, it was, you know, probably quarter-sized drops of blood, and then I start kind of losing it, and he had taken off up the hill more because I spooked.
Oh. Okay.
And I come up, it's like a finger, and then there's a ridge off to even lower, and so I'm thinking he probably went downhill off the other side. So I spend like 45 minutes going off the other side of this ridge, looking for him, looking for blood, and I don't see anything. So I'm like, you know, I've probably got 2 hours of light left, and I had only brought up maybe a liter of water with me, thinking that I could filter water up there, but there was no water to filter. And so I'm running out of water, and I go back kind of where I came from, where I called from originally, and I found blood. I was like, so he went back the area I came from. That's kind of weird. I mean, it was thick enough that I had come in on trails, so, you know, I'm thinking maybe he took the trail I came from, and I had found some bedding up above where they were. So I just start going up to that bedding spot thinking, you know, if I sneak up on the bedding spot, he's probably up there. You know, where he thinks he's safe. And so I get up there, no elk. And at this point, I'd gone probably 200 yards with no blood. And I just kind of followed tracks. And I'm scouring the ground. It was pinpricks of blood everywhere, you know, the trail, but they were just hard to find. And I had like those, you know, those leaves that are green but have red on them?
Yes.
Tons of those everywhere. So I'm like, this is like hardcore detective work. I mean, I'm trying to figure this out. And on my hands and knees, I find like just the smallest piece here, and then another 30 yards that way, I find another piece here. And it was 4 hours of tracking and half mile by the time I figured out where he had gone, and he like flipped upside down. I think what happened was I got a single lung shot.
Gotcha.
And a jugular. So I think what happened was he just bled out, and he had like kicked over backwards while he fell into a bush. And I've never killed an elk at this point, so I'm walking up to a horse basically, and I got to be able to move this thing out of a bush by myself. And he's antlers first into the bush. So, you know, I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I ended up taking me probably a half hour to get him drugged down like 5 feet into what was as open of an area as I could get him. And I same kind of situation as that bear, because this was right after that bear. I'm like yelling. I'm part native, so I'm like doing some native, yelling out into the woods, like trying to just make noise. And I'm completely out of water at this point, so I'm feeling the effects. My mouth's super dry. I'm like, my hands are cramping from trying to cut this thing up. It took me a good 3 or 4 hours to cut it up, and it's midnight at this point. Well, I finally get him like strung out on a log. I get all the quarters strung out on a log, because there's no way I'm hanging them at this point. I don't have enough dexterity or basically strength. I was just delusional. I didn't realize it until I started walking down the mountain. Well, I didn't follow the trail. I was so out of it. I just started walking straight down. Well, I got myself into like I don't know the exact plant, but it's like buckbrush. It's just taller than you by like 3 feet, and you like literally have to swim through it. And I've got my bow strapped to my backpack, and I didn't even take any meat with me. I just was like, I need to get water, so I'm trying to get back to the truck.
Yeah.
And it's 2.5 miles back to the truck. He had gone towards the truck, otherwise I would probably been in a worse spot. But I'm lost in the woods. Like my Onyx isn't working for some reason. I can't find my tracking spot, and I'm just making my way the way I think the trail might be. Yeah. And I try to cross this log over what looks like, when a tree falls over, it leaves a big pit.
Yeah.
I come across that thing, and I slip and fall into the pit and like break through 3 layers of branches, and I'm like screaming my head off, cuss words, pissed. And as soon as I go quiet, I hear wolves go off, and I'm like, oh man, I don't like that.
Jesus.
So I'm making my way up, and I'm like, I know there's a spot I can camp, and so I'm just gonna put up my tent and go to sleep, like just try and block it all out, So I'm making my way. I find the trail finally, and I get to the clearing where I know that I can put a tent. And as soon as I get that tent set up, I look the hill with my headlamp, and I see 3 sets of eyes looking back at me.
Oh God.
Yeah, and I'm like, I know there's a ton of bears in this area, and I just heard wolves, so I don't know what that is, but I'm just going to try and get in the tent and go to sleep. I played loud music all night and plugged my phone into a battery or whatever. And it's just, I made it through the night, obviously, but it was no water, trying to fall asleep. It was horrible, but I made it out. Yeah, it was crazy.
Dude, that's another great story. Sounds like you need a hunting buddy is really what we think you need.
Definitely.
Cool, man. Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm running out of time, so I apologize to you. But do you want to share where people can find you, Instagram, anything like that, or you just want to walk off into the sunset? Either one works for me.
My Instagram's just my name, and that's about it.
There we go. Cool, man. Yeah. Well, Jake, dude, this was fun. These are some really great stories. The bear stories, the elk stories. I enjoyed all of them. Hopefully the listeners do too, man. And thank you for reaching out. If any of you listeners have some great stories, make sure you guys reach out. If you got an old timer, I'm trying to get more people to introduce me to old timers. If you guys got an old timer who doesn't do social media or doesn't do podcasts, help me get in touch with them, because I think we need to get more old timers on the show. But Jake, man, this was fun. Thank you very much. Those stories were killer, brother. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thank you. We'll have you back. I feel like in like 2 years, you'll have like 15 more stories where you almost died. So we'll have you back.
Yeah, hopefully. I'd do it for sure.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
All right, bye.
All right, guys. That's it. Another couple stories in the books. I want to thank Jake again for coming on the podcast, being brave and sharing his stories with us. I did have to cut him short to jump off to another call, so hopefully we have Jake on again in the future, because I think he had a few more stories for us. As for you guys, if you have some stories, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to hear from each and every one of you, hear your stories, and hopefully get you on an episode. But beyond that, guys, give us some feedback. I don't ask for this too often, but I'd love to hear how I'm doing, how I could be better, what you think of the storytelling, what you think of the news episodes. Any information is good information, and I would appreciate that. Beyond that, share the podcast with one person, please. Give us a review and a like if you haven't already. Now, that's it, guys. Thank you so much. Get out there and make some stories.